the AC on the crap box decided to quit. Perfect timing, nice and hot outside. So I'll come back here and show you guys a couple little tips. So the very first thing I did was made sure that my belt was intact. And then the next thing to do is turn your AC on full blast and look down there to make sure the compressor clutch is going while the engine's running. And the next thing to take a look at for a few minutes is one of these. Get you one of these. They work good. You can see the AC is on full blast here. The clutch is not engaged. So since the clutch is not engaging and the AC is on, the next thing to check is the pressure. So rather than get out an AC machine, just plug in this stupid little gauge here. And you can see it has plenty of pressure. And it looks like it's over pressured, but it's not on. So don't let that worry you. Now, almost all AC systems made have a high pressure switch and a low pressure switch. So if the high pressure, if it gets too high of a pressure, it'll click off and it won't turn on. That's your high pressure switch on a 94 to 02 Dodge down there by the compressor. Most makes and models are very similar, and they have a low pressure switch on the dryer. And on this Dodge, it's right there. Now the next place to look, because we know we have a full charge, is that switch. Now, for some reason, this dial here is down here in the green. It's usually under about 25 pounds for most cars. If it's not in the blue above 25 pounds, the system simply won't kick on because of that low pressure switch. If your system is reading 0 or anywhere below 25 PSI and that compressor is not kicking on, it may just need a charge. It's a possibility. You can buy one of these cheap hose kits from O'Reilly's or anywhere and charge it up a little bit, and that might solve it. However, if it is low, it's low for a reason. It most likely has a leak. And where these things leak most commonly, and I don't care what kind of car it is right behind the compressor clutch down there. There's a seal that goes into the pump itself. And if that seal has a real slow leak, you can try some of the stop leak stuff, something like that. And that might get you by for a little while. Most likely you just need to replace your compressor. And when you do it, you need to do the dryer, which is that guy. Along with the dryer there, you need to replace the orifice tube. And the orifice tube is inside this return line that comes back from the condenser out front. Now, most cars have a orifice tube that costs a couple of bucks and is easily replaceable. Unfortunately, I don't have one here to show you, but it looks like a little plastic deal with like a little screen built into it. And it'll be inside like one of these connections or something. You'll take apart a connection and then take a bare needle nose and just pull it out. No big deal. Unfortunately, if you have a Chrysler product, most of the orifice tubes are not replaceable. So it's usually in a fixed part of the line where you cannot replace it. So you end up having to replace the whole line. Kind of a pain in the butt. In the case of the crap box, I have plenty of pressure there. The next place to look is this low pressure switch. And I've replaced quite a few of these over the years. They just go bad, no big deal. It's not a very common thing, but it happens. How do we test if this is a low pressure switch? Well, the first thing I'll do is I'll unplug it, bring it around up here to the top, and then I'll run a jumper wire from one side to the other. And all this is a paper clip with the plastic sheet. There you go. So now when I start it with the AC on, the clutch will spin if that is the problem. Now, if it has low pressure, it could also kick on, and that's not good for the system. But we know we have plenty of pressure. There it is. You see that compressor going? It's jumpered. So there you go. You know you have a bad pressure switch. Easy fix. So I wanted to show you something on one of these. It's out of my pile of parts here. So this one's good, and they should freewheel like this. But if something inside the compressor fails and it locks it up, it'll break these little fingers right here, and then the compressor won't work. So if you can grab the front of the clutch here, and you can turn it with a little bit of resistance, and it feels all right, then it might be okay. But if you can't turn it at all, it's locked up, or these fingers are broken, it's done, it's game over. If your compressor failed and seized up, or if those fingers are broken, it most likely sent metal through all of your lines and your condenser out front and everything. So at a minimum, you're gonna need to do a compressor, dryer, and orifice tube and have the system flushed. In this case, doing this low pressure switch, sometimes you have to get them with a wrench, but a lot of times you can just grab them like that, and take them off, and it's on a Schrader valve, so you're not gonna lose your charge if you take it off. I'm sure most of you guys know this already, but maybe some don't. You can get a can of refrigerant. If your vehicle is a 94 or newer, you're gonna use this 134A. And this is like 8 to 12 bucks. You can get a gauge set for like 20, 25 bucks. Not all vehicles 94 and newer use this. Some vehicles use some oddball stuff, especially some of the Japanese cars and whatnot. But anyways, not everybody has access to an AC machine, so this is going to be a good option for you, and it's cheap. These have these little needles right here that puncture the can. Now you wouldn't want to just put it on there and pop it because it's going to blow up in your hand. So I know that sounds stupid, but you just take and turn this all the way back and then thread it onto the can. You can see it's backed off now all the way. Now you can thread it onto the can. And then when you're done with it, you just tighten that back down, and you can't pull the can off unless it's empty. So don't try it. And before I puncture the can, I'll just hook it up to the truck or car or whatever you're working on. Now you can puncture it, but you want to do this when the truck's running. So now it's running, you can see it's in the blue. It's good to go. The compressor's down there is going, and it's not kicking on and off, cycling. When the engine's off like this, it'll go into the red, and that's fine. So when you're charging this thing, if your compressor clutch is kicking on and off and on and off, that's a low pressure situation. So it needs more of a charge. You want it to run consistently at an idle. Besides having a good charge and a good compressor and dryer, one of the most important parts is a good orifice tube. And I can't really show you one here. It's inside the line on these trucks. But it's like a little plastic deal with a screen built in. To give you a quick rundown of basically how they work, the compressor down there pumps your Freon and your oil up through that line right there, over here, and into your condenser out front. And it goes through cooling just like your radiator. And the line from your compressor will be your hot side, obviously, right there. And your cold side back from the cooler is right here. Now you're probably wondering, why is it 96 degrees? And that's not where your cooling takes place. Now this does cool the Freon down from 130, 140 degrees down to around 100, but that's not where the cooling takes place. It's actually in your orifice tube. Freon cools when it expands. So with your orifice tube, you have high pressure on one side, and then it goes through a little tiny little port, and when it expands on the other side, that's when it cools down. For instance, I'm sure some of you guys have been charging your system and you open up this valve, and when you do, the can starts to get cold. Well, that's because the Freon that's inside of the can starts to expand, and that's when it starts cooling. So if that orifice tube is dirty or clogged, it's not going to work properly. One thing I never understood is why those lines right there did not get insulated from the factory. They're right next to this whirly thing that kind of gets hot. Wouldn't it make sense to insulate those? So that's one of the things I'm going to do here pretty quick. I'm going to wrap the downpipe, turbo blanket, and the lines. No more excuses. Get out there and fix your AC.